Hey everyone! So, it's been about a month since I last uploaded. There's been a lot of drama dealing with my little Cricut back there, and I basically figured it out. I will definitely tell you the real reason why your Cricut machine is not cutting properly. It wasn't something that I wanted to hear and figure out, but before you kind of jump to conclusions and realize you have the same exact issue as I have, or as many as, you know, a lot of people. I've seen a lot of forums of people having issues with their Cricut not cutting right, and I'm pretty sure they don't know the reason, but I found it out. There's a couple things you can do to fix and just to make sure, you know, that that's not the issue. The first thing you can definitely do is check the lighting. You definitely want to make sure you have proper lighting on your Cricut machine, because if it's not enough light source coming in, then the little light bulb that it has with the whatever it uses to scan the registry lines on each of your projects, it won't read it properly or not good enough, so that may or may not cause your cuts to be right or completely wrong. So you want to make sure you have enough lighting, and I guess you can see behind me I have two lamps, one really big one and another small one I can adjust to correct the shadows from that the big one makes. So lighting's one of the top things that you should definitely make sure you're doing properly, and that might correct your issue. The next thing you can do is basically make sure your blade is clean. If you're doing a lot of projects, big or small, a lot of times, especially if you're cutting like sticker paper and regular paper and cardstock, it'll leave a lot of little tiny itty bitty dust and lint that will collect on your blade. And also, it depends on what type of sticker design you have. It might cut out little tiny pieces of the sticker paper that might get stuck on the blade, and that kind of happened to me. So you want to make sure every once in a while you take your blade out, make sure it's clean and nothing's stuck on it or under it, so it cuts the way you need it to cut. Third thing you want to do is make sure your mat is flat. It's kind of hard to do, especially if you have your Cricut machine being shipped to you, or, you know, I don't know how it is buying in stores physically, but of course I ordered from the Cricut website itself. So when I had it sent in, the mat couldn't fit flat. It kind of was bent, curled around the machine, so it permanently was bent like that. So that kind of throws it off. But because I ordered the bundle pack, it came with another set of mats, which was sent separately in a large flat box. So those mats were okay. So if you're looking for more mats, try your best to go out to like one of the craft store like Michael's or Walmart or Hobby Lobby or whatever crafting stores are in your area, and see if you can pick up a mat personally, because most likely those mats will be flat. So that's your best bet. Next thing you want to do is make sure your machine is on a leveled surface. Of course, it has a built-in leveler, but depending on where you live, it might not be able to compensate for whatever surface you have your Cricut sitting on. So you want to make sure it's leveled, and that does make a difference. And finally, calibrate the hell out of your machine. Calibrate it as much as you possibly can, or just make sure you calibrate it in the first place, and every once in a while recalibrate it if you're doing a bunch of random projects that might kind of confuse the machine over time. And so you want to make sure it's calibrated. Now, if you go through all of these steps and you make sure all of them are correct, and you've tried all of this and your Cricut machine is still cutting off, and it's still shifting the cuts, and it's still messing up your projects or most of what's in your project or whatever, you and I had the same issue. I'm going to tell you the story after we got off from the last vlog, and I was trying to basically get the rest of my things set up for my shop and try to figure out with these sticker sheets and put them up, and basically just kind of I gave it another shot. After I tried fighting with the machine a couple more times and it kept destroying 90% of each cut and just eating away at my materials and killing my ink printer and all of that stuff, I decided to give it one last shot before I threw this thing out the window, and I called Cricut. Basically, I went through a hell of a lot of tests with the woman who was on the phone with me, and basically she just wanted me to keep calibrating over and over and over. And of course, if you watched my last vlog, you know how many times I dealt with calibrating the machine and all of the things that I've done to try and fix it. But I was like, you know what, whatever, I'll do what she says. I'll calibrate it over and over and over and over. One of the things she says when you do calibrate the machine, regardless of whether the cut is centered on the first test it does with the little square, she says it doesn't matter if it's centered, just push yes. So I'm like, okay, and that's what I'll do. And then of course you want to pick the lines that are cut closest to the center, and then you do a final test cut, which it'll do the bigger rectangle. And when it does that final test cut, it's supposed to be centered all the way around. And that's the cut you're supposed to be looking for, whether or not it was centered. The issue I was having with mine was, regardless of where I was putting, like the lines, whether it was centered or not centered or whatever, it was never centered in the final cut. So no matter how exact I got it to the center cuts, when I was doing the calibrations, it always cut it off. And the more I looked into it, the more I could see where it shifted, which of course, when I was looking at my projects, that's where it started to mess up. It was always, the top line was already good, that wasn't a problem, but like once you got to the center of where the mat was and the rest of the stickers, it started shifting off. We spent like a good hour and a half testing cuts, and she was, you know, giving me options, and I'm like, you know, it's not working. And basically I went through one project, I think it was the Fox one, and I used a lot of sticker paper, a lot of ink, and just basically to say the same thing of what you guys seen in my vlogs of the issue I was having. She came to the conclusion that pretty much the cut was still within the 1/8 margin of the machine, or whatever default that they have, and because it was within the 1/8 margin, they don't count it as a problem. So basically there isn't anything she can do about it. And she was saying, you know, if I send you another machine, that can have a chance of, you know, having the same problem because of that 1/8 margin. So of course I wasn't happy about it, and I was tired of dealing with her, so I got off the phone with her and I was like, I'll keep trying. And I did. So I kept calibrating the machine over and over, and I kept testing projects, and I kept doing the same exact thing. So basically 2 days later, I ended up calling Cricut back again, and I pretty much reached another person, so I had to go through the whole thing over again and explain the issues I was having with this Cricut. So we went through countless more tests, and I was speaking on the phone with the guy this time, and I sent him my project itself for him to test it out at home for his, you know, machine to do it. And basically I was showing him pictures of the cut being thrown off, and it just wasn't working. He again said something about the 1/8 margin, and I'm like, well, you know, I can't do anything with this, so like we gotta figure something out, because yes, I know there are people who have issues with this Cricut machine, but I know not everybody does, so something's up with this machine. So then again, after another hour and a half, almost 2 hours of sitting on the phone with him, testing out and trying different things with this machine, he basically said that he was going to try and find a replacement, because I started getting annoyed and agitated, because I'm like, you know, I'm wasting money, wasting material, wasting time, wasting a lot of resources, doing all these test cuts for you to say the same exact thing, because I know exactly what's wrong with this machine. And so your little tests aren't really helping me, and it's just eating up my money. And so that's something I don't really play with. And so he said he would, you know, put in for a replacement. I'm like, okay, we're good. Thank you. So then he said I should hear back from him the next day or the day after. I basically wait those 2 days. It was like a Friday and then a Saturday, and I heard nothing from him. And so I basically waited till Monday, and I gave him till Monday to call me back, because basically I had to put everything on hold because it was destroying most of my stuff, and you know, I already opened my shop, so you know, I don't want to be sitting there not being able to do anything at all. So I call back 3 days later. I waited until Monday, and Monday came, and when I called Cricut again, I had reached another person. This was a different girl, so I had to basically re-explain everything to her, and basically she had to kind of read through all the notes that the previous people who I've been dealing with were taking about my issue. And at this point, I'm kind of pissed, because basically they're saying the same exact thing, and then she's saying, you know, try calibrating it, blah blah blah. I'm like, we went through all these tests, I'm not doing it again. What I need is my Cricut to be fixed. She was telling me the same thing, like, oh, it's within the 1/8 margin, so they can't really do anything about it, and basically that's how the machine is. And I'm like, this is unacceptable, because I can't do my job. Like, I understand, you know, I was nice, but I wasn't nice, but I was nice. And I told her, and I was like, well, you know, I understand you're trying to do your job, but I can't do my job because your machine's not working. So, you know, yeah, you're on the phone with me, we're dealing with this, but you're getting paid. You're doing your job successfully. I can't do anything at all because this machine isn't working, and you're giving me this BS about this 1/8 margin. And again, I repeated to her, I'm like, you know, I know not everybody's having this issue, so it's clearly a problem with your machine. When I started getting a little more agitated, she just said she would open up a ticket, because I told her I was waiting for whoever I was talking to open a replacement or get back to me, and he never did. And I was like, you know, I can't sit here and wait. So she opened up a ticket for me, and she said I need to film a video of what my issue is, send it in. She'll send it in to her tech people, and they'll get back to me within like a week. I say, okay. So I already went through this process with the first machine that I had, and I'll give you the story on that in a second. I was able to record and refilm everything that I filmed that you've all seen with me dealing with this machine, and how it's cutting the stickers off no matter how many times I calibrated. And I went through the whole thing, and it ended up being like 20 minutes long. So I sent it in to her the next morning because it took a while to render. And the cut in the center is off like it usually is. In the top half it's centered, but then when you get around to maybe J or K, that's when it starts to shift, and then you can see the black line a lot more on the other side than on the other side, and it cuts it off, so it's not centered. And it does it every single time that I calibrate this machine. So it doesn't matter what I put, it still cuts it off centered. Just to be on the safe side, I'm going to calibrate this machine again. And the cut in the square, if you can see it, again, it doesn't matter where it is, it's not centered, and it's centered up top, and it starts to shift around here, KLM. I don't know what happened here, but clearly this is completely off. And if you look at it, it's lined up exactly on the line. I don't know if you can see if it's focused, but it's clearly on the white line, lined up perfectly, and I don't know what it's doing, why it cut this way. But even here you can see the shift, and you can see what I'm talking about, as in up top where it normally would be okay. Let's pretend this is the way it's supposed to be, which it's not. You can see the huge difference at the bottom. So it's clearly cutting off the image. I'll print and cut this one more time, and then I'll calibrate the machine if it doesn't do anything, and I'll show you again. And before I cut it, you can see it's exactly on the white line. It's lined up perfectly, so it should be reading the placement. This is the second cut without even calibrating it, and you can see that now it's different, but it's still not consistent. So this was the top one of the one we just did, and this is the bottom one of the one we just did right before this one. And clearly it's all not the same. These top ones, again, are okay, but when you get towards the bottom, it shifts and cuts off the image. So I waited through the day, and then I think around maybe like 1 o'clock that next day, I get an email from the guy who I spoke with, who said he was going to get me a replacement. And basically in that email he said they can't send me another machine because it's within the 1/8 margin, and because, wait, what did he say? Oh, okay, that's what he said. They were giving me the BS, and he was saying, like, you know, with the 1/8 margin things. But the main reason why they weren't going to replace my machine was because it basically fell under the warranty of the first machine that I had, and that warranty was up. So they weren't going to replace it, regardless of the issue I was having with this machine that they sent me. I got pissed. Really pissed off, because, alright, let me give you the full-on background. I had bought my Cricut machine in 2020, like January, and of course I was diving into it headfirst, not knowing a single thing about any of it. I didn't know how to use Photoshop, or, you know, I didn't know how to use the design space. I didn't know how to make a sticker at all. All I knew was how to draw, and that was it. And I didn't know what I was doing. So it took me a couple of months to kind of like learn the ropes and figure out how to even make a sticker and figure out how to, you know, function everything. And of course that's when the pandemic started and everything basically got shut down. So I was limited on the things that I could do. I ordered my ink, my printer, all of the things that I could get, and pretty much once that ran out, I was kind of stuck and I didn't have anything to do. So I took that time to practice cutting stickers and making my designs and all of that stuff, and of course it was cutting off completely. Like none of the like borders were cutting properly, and it was just random, and I thought I was doing it wrong. Of course, because I was inexperienced, I'm like, okay, well, that's probably it. And then of course I ran out of ink, and then I couldn't get anything else, so I had to wait a couple more months, and then everything started to kind of mellow out, and so I was able to get back into it and relearn everything and keep trying over and over. So of course I went through a bunch of tests, and you know how I roll with trying to figure out something, especially if I'm determined. And I started noticing while it was cutting, the little rubber piece that it turns the bar for the mat to move up and down for the machine to cut, it was starting to move, and eventually it would end up in the middle of the mat. And I figured out that was what the issue was because it was defective. So one of the little rubber mat pieces to rotate the bar was kind of like melted, so it was flat, so it was lumpy rolling, and that kept shifting my mat, which threw the cut off, and basically I couldn't really use it. So I caught that problem around December, and so I called Cricut, and you know, I made a video of that, and I showed them exactly what the issue was. And so it took them more than a week to get back to me, because they didn't even try and get back to me until I actually called them again to say, hey, what's going on with the status? And then they were like, okay, well, they sent me a return label, so then I sent my machine back, and they sent me a new machine, which is this one. So then I'm like, okay, I'm back into the groove of things, and I reordered all of the materials that I needed, and so I started cutting for me to be able to open up my shop in January, which didn't happen clearly. And that's when I started vlogging, and we rolled into pretty much what you saw in the last vlog of me seeing what's wrong, figuring it out, and doing all of these tests. And so again, basically they sent me another defective machine. So when I called, I was like, this isn't acceptable, because all I wanted was one machine that worked. I basically spent like half a grand on a machine that you sent me that was defective in the first place. And so I send it back to you for a replacement of a working machine, and you pretty much sent me this. So I'm like, just not acceptable. I can't, I do not accept the 1/8 margin BS that you're giving me. So when I call, I speak with another girl, another worker, and unfortunately for her, I was more agitated, and they were just kind of pushing me more and more to Karen mode, which I don't want to be, but like, it is what it is. And I re-explained to her the problem that I was having, and re-explained to her that basically I just want one working machine. Like, I'm not trying to chip you out of anything. I don't care. I just want a machine that works. Just one. That I basically pay my money for. Just give me what I paid for. And so that's all I want. And she was giving me the whole thing of, okay, well, did you do all of these tests? And I was like, I'm not doing any more tests. I'm not wasting any more paper. I'm not wasting any more ink. I'm not wasting any more anything on it, any of this. Put in for a new machine and let that be that. So basically we kind of went back and forth, and she understood where I was coming from, and she understood why I was agitated, but she just works there, so she couldn't really do much. She still had people to answer to, and I told her, I'm like, I'm frustrated, but don't take this as anything towards you. Like, I know you're doing your job, but we got to figure something out, because what do you mean you're not sending me another machine? So basically it was a long conversation, and she was revealing more things to me that seemed pretty shady. So what she was saying was like, well, my warranty was up, and this is my warranty from my first machine. And what I said is, that makes no sense. And I looked through their warranty again, and nowhere where it says that they send a replacement, that replacement will be under the same exact old warranty. And the problem that I had was that because I discovered the issue with the first machine late, basically towards the end of that warranty, once they sent me this machine, time was up, and they're like, oh, well, doesn't work. I guess, your warranty's up. And I'm like, any working business, any functioning anything would always have an extended warranty. Or at least let the buyer or consumer know that whatever replacements that you're getting will fall under the first warranty. But nowhere in their booklet, nowhere in anything that they have on their website says anything about any 1/8 margin issue. Nowhere it says anything about their warranty policy of not sending another machine and blah blah blah. And basically I just kept going over and over of you never sent me a working machine in the first place, and they're like, well, we already sent you one, so we don't really send any more. And I'm like, that makes no sense to me. This isn't how you run a business. You just, what's it gonna cost you to send me something that actually works instead of sending me this BS that's broken two times? And they wouldn't have known. Of course I was going to buy a couple more machines from them, but you know, if you're giving me these hidden secret things and telling me all of this 1/8 whatever where you don't admit it in your own site or say anything about it, then I'm not gonna deal with you and I'm not gonna put any more money into your company. So I kept going back and forth with her, and basically she kept telling me, she's like, well, you know, you're not gonna get a perfect cut and blah blah blah. But I'm like, well, this is what I paid for, so I don't understand. And I told her, and she was telling me basically, like, you know, the Cricut Machine runs better on like their other projects and whatever. And I said that I'm not wasting my money on spending on leather and metal and all of this other stuff to do all of these other fancy cuts and projects when you can't get your machine right with the regular print and cut. And so basically what she told me was that the print and cut feature was the only feature that didn't really work properly, and that's the one that had that 1/8 margin whatever. And to me, I was really agitated because I'm like, well, this is why I bought your machine. The specific reason to cut and print stickers and to use that print and cut feature. So basically you're knowingly selling a product that you know does not work with a certain feature, but you don't say anything about it. You don't say anything at all. So I was just like, you know, I'm not really messing with, like, that's shady to me. So, you know, I don't know. Then I just started getting more and more pissed off, and then she's like, I'll see what I can do, and she put me on hold, and I kept getting put on hold for a while, and she was dealing with her supervisor or whoever, and she came back to me and she's like, well, you know, what I can do is send you a refurbished machine. But the catch to sending me a refurbished machine is that there's no way in hell that I would get another machine. So basically, I would accept this refurbished machine and that would be it. So if that doesn't work, then, you know, their hands are clean from it. Like, that's the end of it. And so at first I was kind of considering, I'm like, okay, well, you know, all right, well, I guess anything's better than, you know, this thing that's not really working. And so I was sitting next to my husband and he was listening, and then he asked, you know, why was this machine, this refurbished machine, sent back? Like, what was wrong with it, why it was sent back, for them to fix it, for them to want to send it to me, and also to ask the question of the price difference of what the refurbished machine would be at compared to the original price that I paid for. And so when she came back and, you know, she started processing, I told her to pause, and I asked her, I said, you know, well, what was the reason why this machine that you're sending me was sent to you? And she was like, well, you know, it's usually the refurbished machines are much better than the original machines because I guess they go back into it and they fix things. And she couldn't tell me why that machine was sent to them. But she was like, for the most part, it's if a button doesn't work or any of the like little minor things wrong with the machine. And so it gets sent back, so they fix it. And then I asked her, I was like, well, what's the price difference? When she answered that, she was like, well, there is no price difference because they don't sell refurbished machines. They only give the refurbished machines as replacements. And so they don't sell machines that are broken. They just give it to, for like, I guess, whatever replacements. Something clicked in my head. And I was thinking, I'm like, oh, so is this machine that you sent me a refurbished machine? Which is why it's not working, which makes sense to me. And she said no. She said it was a brand new machine. Because I guess since the first machine that I had gotten was a manufacturing defect, so they sent me a brand new machine. Either way, I had an issue with that because, which for one, I don't think is the truth. I'm pretty sure they sent me a refurbished machine because like it just makes sense, because like there's, no matter what you're doing, it's off and it's broken. But if that's the case, if they did send me a brand new machine, then that's even worse because you send me two machines that don't work in a row. So how many machines that are going out that you're sending and selling to people that are just screwed? And you know, you have manufacturers who don't know what they're doing and just sending out crap, basically. And so she was like, well, you know, it's a new machine. And I'm like, okay, well, that, you know, why is this not working then? And she was saying, oh, well, you know, they all have that 1/8 margin, whatever, about, you know, the cuts, and it's always going to be off, especially if you're using the print and cut feature, and it's always going to shift and blah, blah, blah. So I told her I don't want the refurbish because I knew enough about this machine to be able to fix it. Not really fix it, but like, I know what I'm working with this machine. And if I were to accept the refurbished machine, then I don't know what I'm getting. I don't know why they sent it back, and I don't know if they do a good enough job fixing it, because clearly they're not doing a good enough job if you're selling me and sending me 2 machines that don't work. So I have zero faith in your ability to correct your mistakes, which you shouldn't have to do. But yeah, I'm not rolling with that. I don't want to be screwed even more with basically taking that chance with a machine I have no idea what the issue is with. So I told her, I'm like, you know what, forget it. I don't want the refurbished, but I do want to speak to your supervisor. And she was saying, oh, well, he's going to say the same thing that, you know, we've all been saying because that's who I've been working with. And I'm like, nope, I just want to hear it from him or whoever it is. And basically they can tell me exactly what the issue is. So I know it is what it is. So she puts me on the phone with the supervisor, and I'm not nice anymore. I'm still respectful, of course, but I have zero patience. And I basically asked him, I said, so this is what it is. This is what you're selling me. And he goes through the whole thing of explaining to me of basically that the print and cut feature, it will always be off because it's a consumer machine, and because it's a consumer machine, the gears might be a little off, and especially with the print cut feature that, you know, there's that 1/8 margin window that, you know, it will read and they'll still count it as working. And also what he said was basically when your machine is cutting, it's recalibrating. So after every cut, every line of cutting, it's calibrating over and over and over. So it's working off of the previous cut, and it's basically recalibrating itself from the previous thing that it, did. So that's why it shifts, and that's why it's off. And so that to me is stupid, but I guess that's how you build your machine. But I'm like, okay, well then I guess that's what it is. But like, I think it's a shady way to run your business and a shady way to kind of sell your stuff to people who don't even know that that's what the issue truly is. Because I'm pretty sure if you're having these issues that I was having of, you know, the cut being off and the cut shifting, and, you know, you're thinking it's something you're doing, or you think it's just the calibration or whatever, but they know good and well what the issue is. That for one, it's not, you know, built properly for it to be able to cut properly. And two, like, what's the point of the machine scanning to understand where the cuts are in the first place if it's going to recalibrate every time? So if you have like a dog sticker on the top and a lion sticker in the middle and like an elephant on the bottom, it's going to be off because like it's working from the previous cut. And if the previous cut is completely different, or if it shifts a little bit, then it reads it as the next one, which is why the cuts shift and it's off. I was like, okay, that's all I needed to hear, that basically this is what it is. This is how you run your business. This is how your machine is. And that's that. So then, you know, I told him again, I don't want the refurbished because I don't know why it was sent back. And I hung up the phone with him. And basically, that's how we ended the conversation. And I'm pretty much stuck with this machine that I can't really use. So what I ended up doing was basically retesting and recalibrating and redoing everything that I was doing over and over and over again. And basically I was able to adapt. And because I understood now exactly how their machine functions, which, you know, the key thing that he told me was that it keeps recalibrating each time it cuts, like every time the machine moves and it moves on to the next row, it's recalibrating from the previous cut. That basically, in order to function a stupid machine, you have to think like a stupid machine and think of ways to work around it. And so that's what I've been testing and doing, and I combined all the options that they were giving me of, like, you know, just putting one image in design space, and then when you click to make it, copy the image, and then it'll multiply it, and I guess that will kind of space it out the way the machine will be able to read it, and not the way you're putting it and expecting it to read it, because it's too stupid to read it the way you want it to be read, so you have to do it the way it wants to do it. And so that kind of realigned gears a little bit, and so it was giving me less of a hassle. You can see that it's kind of tilted because I stacked a bunch of paper and cardstock and whatever to tilt it up, because you know, I want it to be super leveled, and you know, I don't trust the built-in level that it has. And basically kind of treating it like it's a dummy machine, which it is. And so because I was able to do that, and I put it specifically on lines, and I spaced it out, and I of course didn't fill up my page, which I'm wasting more paper, but not as much as I would if, you know, I was doing the same thing I was doing before. But I kind of adjusted and adapted to the way that machine works and that machine cuts. So I was able to finally print out my sticker sheets, and of course, yes, once in a while it'll start to mess up. So I'm kind of figuring out the timing of when to stop and turn off the machine and turn it back on, and basically reset everything for it to cut properly again. So far it's been okay, and I was able to add more things to my shop, and so I will continue to add more things, and I can take everything off pause and, you know, keep working and adding more things to my shop. And so that's basically what I've been dealing with. And so yeah, it's been a lot, and a lot of aggravation and a lot of annoyance, and the problem is that turned me off completely of doing this in general, which it's unfortunate, but I'm like, I already opened my shop, I already have my LLC and business and all of that stuff, so I know it's something I want, and so I'm going to keep working towards not letting that discourage me and aggravate me, because it's just how I function. If it's too annoying, it's not worth the stress, and I just say fuck it. But of course the camera dies. But yeah, I don't want to do that, and pretty much I don't want to waste $500 on something that I can't use anymore. So I am doing what I can with this machine, and in the future I'm going to test out the other types of cutting machines and see if they're any better or if they give the same issue, but at least I know what questions to ask before I buy and the things to look for before I make that purchase. So hopefully you were able to stick through this entire story and this entire drama and nonsense of dealing with Cricut, which I know if you've read a lot of forums of, you know, trying to find solutions to why your Cricut's cutting off and why it's shifting and why it's not doing the things that it needs to be doing, especially with the print and cut feature. That's why. They know good and well that they set up a design and they design their machine and they know it's not working right. But they're not going to tell you that until you call and bitch about it, which is what I did, and that's how I found out their dirty little secret. So I'm basically spilling the beans and telling you. So hopefully you sat and listened to the story long enough to find out for yourself of the real reason why your Cricut machine's not working. So if you're one of the unfortunate souls, I'm sorry, but there also are people out there who have bought many, many Cricuts that work fine, and it's just, you know, you're playing a gamble of, am I going to get a machine that works, or am I going to get a machine that's fucked? And so I got 2 machines that were fucked, and not one that works fine, but I'm not even going to bother trying to get another one that will work fine, because my luck, it's probably going to be screwed up again, so I just don't want to deal with that. But that's it. So yeah, I'm going to continue to do what I do, and of course I will try my best to update you on shop information and things that are going out. So, you know, stop by my Etsy store every once in a while, or take a look on my Instagram. A lot of times I'll like post pictures of things. When I finally put them up, they'll be on there. So of course I'll leave all of those links in the description, so you have that to look at. If not, hopefully I informed you enough and you got the good stuff that you needed, and you can move on with your life and, you know, relieve yourself of that stress. But yeah, I will end this vlog now, and I will talk to you in the next video. And so have a wonderful night, morning, evening, or afternoon, whenever you're watching, and I will see you lovelies next time.